No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Oh.
Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Richard Koritz, and I'm proud to be the co-host of You Gotta Laugh to Keep from Cryin, with my favorite co-host,
That's
my
a big
brother.
pat on the back for me then.
It is, yeah. My
main
brother,
man.
my comrade, my friend,
my brother. Give me a hug,
and
brother.
okay, and it's great to be here with you as always.
Yes.
And that man
Well,
has the name Oliver Wendell Sweeney, but you viewers in the audience can, like me, call him OW if you'd like
yes,
to.
and they also can
Reach us at
No. Reach us at the North Carolina
Triad Jobs with Justice
at 336-272-2758. All right, now go
And we
ahead.
did it again, didn't
That's
we?
right,
And
that's
for
right.
many times in a row now.
But I'm kind of anxious to get to our guest today,
So
so
am I.
you go ahead and introduce
Okay.
him,
Yeah,
so we can talk to him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to finally have on the show the person I consider the heart and soul of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum in Greensboro. And he has been for a long time, but now he is the executive director, the top honcho, the man responsible.
Big dog.
Big dog. But in fact, that's the official title. And his name is John Swain, and I also call him brother. He's a fine man, and he's such a fine man.
Welcome to the show, sir. Welcome.
And OW, you have the pleasure of giving this very deserving brother.
Why are you interrupting me?
Excuse me.
I am being bestowed the honor to bestow the honor on you of this here button, which simply says workers deserve respect. And the reason it says workers deserve respect because they are the majority of people in the world, and they're the ones who are most oppressed. And I would like to present this to you, and hopefully you carry it, wear it, or whatever you do with a whole lot of pride.
I will wear it with a lot of pride.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Even though you might be a director, the organization you represent says International Civil Rights Center and Museum, which means that it stands for people all the way around this world.
I know where I came from, too.
Okay. Well, I normally like to give people, if you like to give people a little brief opening statement before we get into the conversation.
Sure.
You might want to tell them a little bit what you would like them to know about you.
Yes. Well, John Swain is my name, and I come from Virginia. I
Homely too.
Born in Virginia, and I've lived here for the last 5.5 years. I really enjoy the North Carolina area, and I feel like it's a homecoming. Coming to an area where you're embraced, and there's plenty to do, and working for the International Civil Rights Center and Museum has offered me an opportunity to really contribute to the civil rights struggle in a way that I never dreamed possible. So I'm really pleased to be down here working for this institution.
All right, thank you. Well, I have to, since I was born in Virginia too, I have to ask what part you were born in?
Roanoke,
Roanoke, okay. We're not
Franklin
too
County.
Not too far apart. I was born in Halifax County, just a little east of
Yes.
you there, right over. That's all right. Yeah, so,
And I was born in San Francisco, California.
well, we won't hold that against you.
Thank you. Thank you. And my parents were out there representing the interests of the 99%.
Hey, well,
and moved shortly thereafter to North Carolina.
I've told you before, you're the product of two great parents who put your mind on the straight and narrow as to what the world is all about and who should be looked after.
Absolutely. And the one thing you left out of your support for the 99%, and especially the workers of the world, is that the workers are the people who make everything go
Oh yeah.
and everything grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, well, it's really a pleasure to finally have you here. You're a wonderful man. And just before the show, you mentioned that I think you said it was your favorite song, but I'd like our audience to get a little bit of a picture of you from the song that you raised.
Well, my favorite song is Let My Work Speak for Me. It's always been a favorite of mine.
and it helps explain to me, because I didn't know that until just before the show, what a tremendous worker you've been,
Thank you.
and almost single-handedly at times, saving this museum from the terrible white supremacist attacks that we've been under, really from just about the time that we opened the museum. And you were the financial, chief financial officer, the number 2 person in the hierarchy for most of the time that we've been in operation. And finally, after they tried a few other people, and especially the last one, that in my opinion,
Well, let's not dirty the
excuse me,
show up, all right?
excuse me, seems to be working against the survival of the museum. You finally become the big dog, as OW bestowed the title on you, and I'm very, very pleased and relieved that you're finally in that position, because you've shown so much love for the museum through your hard work and great ideas as well. So,
Well, like he said, let his work speak for him.
well, I'm representing his work since I've been on the board of the museum the whole time.
I understand.
I'm speaking for
Well,
his work.
it's just
yeah.
that,
Or as you might like to say, I'm actually the vessel through which God is speaking to his work here. That's your view, not mine.
no, I don't know if I would say that or not. Not that God said to do, but he do work in mysterious ways, so I can't take that away from him.
This is true.
But I
That
don't
would
know-
be,
but I don't know if I would say it, dog.
but
We need to talk about some museum
Okay,
stuff
okay.
here. So could you
Yeah.
tell us what your short-term dream for the museum is right now?
My short-term dream for the museum and the goals that I'm getting ready to lay out is moving into our sustainability years. Over the last 5.5 years, the museum has endured a lot of attacks, and a lot of it has been very undeserving. When you look at the staff that we have, they show up every day. They're hardworking people. They depend on that institution for their livelihoods. There's a lot of institutions.
But I just want to add, there's a labor of love for him too now.
It is absolutely a labor of love and lots of institutional enthusiasm. And some of the goals that we're looking at now that we are about ready to exit the first phase of our tax credits next fall, we'll put tax credits behind us as we move on to focusing on the real mission and vision of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. And so we're reaching out to different partners locally, some internationally, to bring dynamic programming and exhibits to the Greensboro area. These are things that we should have been doing from the very beginning. The budget has been a constraint.
Yeah, and don't forget that we discovered when we were rehabilitating the old Woolworths building,
Absolutely.
that there was water not only under that building, but under the entire downtown Greensboro, which meant that we ended up in about a $2 to $3 million hole and
Yes.
going into the whole ushering in of the museum.
Yes, that was
and
devastating.
that was. And
That was
it made
devastating to the
it
museum.
really restricted what we could do, and it made us more vulnerable to the attacks of white supremacists who don't really want a civil rights museum.
I don't know if they don't want a
Yeah,
civil
yeah,
rights
I
museum.
do. I know that.
I don't think it's so much of this. I just think it's so much of the people who came up with the idea that they hate.
No, that isn't correct. They actually don't want a museum that uplifts the people who sacrificed and fought for freedom in the 1960s, because it's contagious, as you know.
Well-
The courage is contagious, and and now with the Black Lives Matter situation that's been exposed in this period, a lot more people are understanding that struggle is ongoing. And so the inspiration that this museum has provided for 5.5 years, and can do even more to provide over the next period of time, is very important to the 99%, and it's a threat to the 1%. And that's really, and I've been living this for these years that the museum's been open, and we've been under attack. I've studied what the News and Record has said very carefully, and that's what it's really about. It's not just about Skip and Earl, who were the men who saved the building for posterity, but it's about the whole cause of freedom and human dignity. And I think John can speak to that because he's been living it even more than I have these last 5.5 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think when you talk about our short-term goals and things that we're wanting to achieve, we're moving past some of the major operational hurdles that held us back, plus some that weren't calculated, like the water, like the downturn of 2008, 9, and 10.
The economic crisis.
And one thing that I've constantly pointed out to a lot of our visitors, even through high gas prices, people losing their homes, losing investments, our visitation did not drop in relation to all of that happening. So we continue to provide an engaging experience. It was good for the overall area for folks to still come and learn about the civil rights struggles of the past.
I'm gonna have to cut you off because you have to give some information in case somebody want to send you some money. They have to know where they can send it to.
Absolutely.
We have to get you to get that out to the people.
Well, there are a number of ways to get involved with the Civil Rights Museum. Of course, unrestricted gifts, and you can go to our website at sitinmovement.org.
Okay, wait a minute. Can you and I say that? sitinmovement.org. Okay.
sitinmovement.org, or send your support into 134 South Elm Street. And
Who should a check be made out to if somebody wanted
to
it?
the International Civil Rights Center and Museum.
Okay.
Or
Let's say it.
Or
Let's say
Sit
it.
In Movement.
Okay. It can be made out to Sit-In Movement or the
Or
International Civil Rights Center and Museum,
134 South Elm Street,
Greensboro, North Carolina, 27401.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you can
They're
go
two old
online.
postal workers right here.
So you can go online and also make a donation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the work,
And by the way, as you well know, we're also postal and federal workers have an opportunity when they designate their funds on a yearly basis to donate to this charity,
yes.
the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. And if I remember correctly, our code number is 22409, and we'll be looking for them. We encourage the postal and federal workers to check out the International Civil Rights Center and Museum.
Yes.
On that basis.
This symbol of a struggle for all people.
Right.
I love that place.
I have to constantly remind people that museum has struggled. The Greensboro Four struggled. The community has struggled.
Well, I'm gonna have to stop you there. I hated when they called them the Greensboro.
It's the A&T
The
for.
A&T Four.
Oh yes, I hated that
for
because
you.
a lot of people think. See, when you tell me that they call them the Greensboro Four, you think that they represent the city of Greensboro, when actually they was fighting against that oppressor, as I like to call it, because the city was going along with Jim Crow in every which way. So they can't be representing the people who was oppressing them.
So it was A&T.
It's the A&T
It was A&T
Four.
Yeah.
It was A&T
A&T.
College.
A&T Four.
Yeah.
College, we just normally say the A&T Four
Yeah.
because they.
And that was how they, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And you haven't had the benefit of those brothers who were the A&T Four, the heroic
Yes.
brothers.
Oh, yeah.
They made it very clear, exactly the point you made.
Yes, because it's amazing. The people like to throw their name around as Greensboro Four as if they represented Greensboro, and if that was so,
There wouldn't have been any struggle.
they would have been in
It was handed to
trouble.
them right
But
then.
I wish they throw their money around to the International Center and Civil Rights Museum like they throw that word around for the Greensboro Four, so we can get our
Yeah.
place on up. And,
That's a very, very good point, O.W., because it helps to expose why the museum has had so many opponents.
Oh, yeah.
In this period. It's not as if we magically, that the A&T Four had magically been given the red carpet treatment.
Yeah,
of
right.
Word go. And this museum that celebrates their heroism and the heroism of so many other black youth and also some white youth and
Oh, yeah.
and all, that fought for civil rights in a South where they were fighting against the law.
Hold on for a
At that
minute.
point.
Could you get that information again where they can send a little money while we're on the subject? I I don't want the people to forget it.
www.sitinmovement.org.
That's
www.
www.
No, oh, yeah, right, you're right. cityinmovement.org.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Or they can send a check or money order to 134 South Elm Street, Greensboro, North Carolina
27401.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, now you go ahead and say what you said. I don't want to.
I forgot what I was going to say. I had trouble when I'm saying what we
Well,
just
as long as
said.
people don't forget to send them checks, everything's all right.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things, John, that you played a role in, and your assistant now, Bay Love, helped with this with an enlightened registrar of deeds, Jeff Thigpen, is this exhibit that's going to be opening soon in
Yes.
September. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, a group of local citizens got together and decided to look into the records of the county, and they started discovering that there was a wealth of information on the slave trade from the 1800s. So they started digging a little deeper, and one of our employees ran across the name Love, and he got really excited about it and started digging in a little deeper and a little deeper. And so it's turned into a very interesting project for them. So they're putting together this very nice exhibit that's going to open in at the museum, I think around September the 11th or September 12th. But we're going to post that information on our website. So.
And what kind of artifacts or what kind of information is going to be in that exhibit?
Mostly it's going to be the records from the county, where they'll bring the books out, and they're going to be behind glass cases, but they're also going to have some of the images enlarged so that people can read the details.
And just give us for instance of a detail or a kind of detail.
For example, there was a particular African American young man that sold for $200 back then, 200 real dollars.
Yeah. Which was a lot of money.
Yes.
Hell of a lot of money.
And as you know, the older the individuals were, the citizens were, the less money you could get for them, or people were willing to pay. But it's quite interesting as they follow.
Excuse me, but they weren't citizens. They were slaves, and they were They were counted as 2/3 of a citizen in the Constitution, as 2/3, but that only strengthened the slaveocracy because they had no vote, no voice.
No.
But it added 2/3 of a person more to the count of the South, the slave South, against the Union North at that time. So it actually was worse than it appeared. It wasn't that somebody was treated like 2/3 of a person. That 2/3 that they were counted as made them even more under the.
It's strange you bring that up because I just recently read an article online. I can't think of the man's name, but he's going around spending nights in old slave plantation, and they was talking about one out in Hampton, New York, and Long Island.
Oh, really?
Yes, where they had slaves out there. It was a very interesting article. I should have printed it off, but it's amazing how people seem to think that slavery only existed in the South when it existed in the North very well. And it wasn't I think it was around, 1820 or 40 or something like that, they abolished slavery in New York City itself, in the state of New York. But it's amazing that people don't think of that or get that kind of education.
Yeah. But the slaves the states that seceded from the Union, in order to preserve and to try to expand slavery. They were the ones. So there was a qualitative difference. You had incidental issues like that in New York.
They didn't succeed, but they did succeed.
They seceded, but they didn't succeed. Yeah.
They succeeded.
Yeah.
They didn't succeed, but they succeeded.
Yeah.
Because it don't seem like different things that we talk about nowadays. We bring up like as Black Lives Matter. The whole stereotype that when you see a black person as a criminal and stuff like this, rather than being an outright upstanding citizens and whatnot. And it's just mind-boggling to me that even I grew up born in the Jim Crow South, that people do not understand how things are not what they say they are. As the OJ say, if you get cut, you're gonna bleed. So,
which means,
I mean, people have to get out of their mind that a human being, you're better than.
yeah,
And you- I mean,
that's only going to happen when human beings have power where now they are oppressed.
Well, I
You know,
understand
as
what
Malcolm
you're
X
saying.
said, when you try to integrate two unequal forces, all you're doing is strengthening the oppression of one by the other. So the question of power is the fundamental question.
I understand that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
understand that, but first they have to change their mindset about one another. Because if you don't-
The mindset of the oppressor won't change until the oppressor is forced to no longer
you're
oppress.
talking about the oppressor. I'm talking about there's a lot of 99%
Oh, yeah.
that
Okay,
think
that's true.
that they're better than
Right.
some because of the color of his skin.
Right.
I understand the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing he care about is the almighty dollar.
Absolutely.
But I want the 99% to understand that you're in the same boat as the other person is.
Yeah.
So that's my angle on it. I understand about the oppressor. I wasn't even talking about the oppressor.
Right. But in the history of the southern United States, the truth of what you're saying is so clear. Because nowhere else in the country were white people so oppressed as in the area where black people were even more oppressed. They contributed to their own enslavement by supporting the enslavement of blacks.
Well, I don't know.
No, I mean I've read those books. I've
it's-
read the studies. There's no question about it.
Well, I
Whether it was
understand your
education,
studies. I understand your
Hunger,
studies.
you know, you name it, and that's
I understand your studies, but
Yeah.
I see the same thing existing in the South as it existed in the North, but on a different cloak. It's like now racism used to be where you had to sit in the back of the bus or a separate water fountain.
Mm-hmm.
So, but up north, you had all these freedom, but yet you were still discriminated against because of the color of your skin.
you were still discriminated against because some rich people were going to be able to take advantage of that discrimination.
I understand that. I'm not trying to change that, but I'm just
And-
trying to
and
show
secondly-
you.
and
I'm just trying to
secondly-
show you whereas it was open in the South, it was undercover in the North. Now it's going undercover in the South, but it's still happening.
But it's actually worse than that, because in the North, the basis for the oppression of the Afro-American people in the North, which I agree with your description, was the fact that there was no Afro-American homeland in the South that had a diplomacy, an army, and an economy that they could use to back up those Afro-American people who had to migrate to survive in the North. And even in that period, black African diplomats could come into the southern United States even and be treated with respect, of course, with protection and all, because they represented, this is after the independence movements had led to the independence of these African countries.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter the color of their skin. They were able, because they had an army. They had a diplomatic corps.
Yeah.
They had an economy that U.S. imperialism wanted to get its hands on.
And you just reminded me that Adolf Hitler had a army and he had a superior, but yet their prisoner of war came over here and they were treated better than the blacks who went across there to fight against that oppression.
Right.
So I mean, it's
And better than the Jewish people, who many of whom spent another 5 years in concentration camps in a not much better condition than they had been in under the Nazis, under the U.S. military before they were in transit. So, there's no question. And a lot of it has to do with the question of power.
the almighty dollar.
And that's the fundamental, that's the driving force.
Yes. We done got off
But
on
we
subject.
get going on our stuff. Yeah, and
We got to get back to the Civil Rights Museum, which is all surrounded, which I think the Civil Rights Museum represent, because it is international. It is worried about struggling people. And you can tell better than that I can, John. You can talk to it better. You're the director of it, so say a little piece on it if you want.
Well, again, some of the things that we're looking forward to is building that international resume. As we continue to look at different types of programs, the slave trade, of course, that happened here. But there are great exhibits that are coming this fall. Americans Who Tell the Truth is another exhibition that we're going to be opening probably near November, closer to the middle of November. Following that, we're going to be looking at the immigration issue next March. And then, of course, I'd announce the Pride of the HBCU exhibit. But
Which are, for our audience, the historically black colleges and universities,
Yes,
the HBCUs.
So there are many stories to tell, and we want to get to all of them. I've had any number of telephone calls from the office of Ted Shaw to,
Who's Ted
Atlanta.
Shaw? Yeah, who's Ted Shaw?
Ted Shaw is the civil rights attorney. He holds the Julius Chambers Chair at UNC Law School. There are so many people that want to be a part of this very important institution, and we're just trying to find space for all of them.
No,
It's going to
I-
make my work easier.
Why you saying people want to be a part of it? Could you give them that number again where they can send a donation? I have to. You have to
Sure,
put this in sometime.
134 South Elm Street, Greensboro, North Carolina 27401. But yes, we get a lot of calls. Review a lot of emails of people wanting to volunteer their time.
And I just want to say two things. One is
2 minutes.
that we get, we at the museum, because I'm on the board of the museum, we get tremendous positive responses from just about everybody that takes our
Positive.
main tour. And I think on TripAdvisor's, I think we're number one, often number one in this whole area, maybe even statewide. So that's one point.
It has been said that
Yeah.
the museum is the number one draw in the state as far as tourism is concerned. Is that a fact?
As of December 31st, we were the number one attraction out of about 86. There was.
Wait a minute, and the News and Record has never said a word to that effect, have they?
Well, we just happened to discover that it was trending
Yeah.
around April of 2014, about the time that we implemented our self-guided tours for the museum. So there's just a lot of positive things happening at the institution. It is a pleasure to get up and come to work every single day. You have to turn off the noise, but focus on what is it that's going to drive this very important community hub and enterprise. And I think that